3 years ago, I pulled my ZZ plant, Zamioculca's zamiifolia, the Zanzibar gem, out of its pot and genuinely gasped. The roots had formed a solid disc at the bottom, not a root ball, a disc. Like the plant had been quietly making its own terracotta replacement from the inside out. I did what every plant person does. I grabbed a bigger pot. The plant experienced transplant shock for 2 months, put out exactly 1 new leaf, and then just stopped. Still alive. Just done. I tried a bigger pot again the following spring. Same thing. Slower, quieter, 1 sad leaf, then nothing. It was my neighbor Patricia who finally said something that changed how I think about repotting entirely. She's been growing things since before I was born, and she looked at my ZZ and said, very calmly, "That plant doesn't need more room. It needs a fresh start." What she meant, I'd come to understand, is that when a plant has been root bound long enough, a bigger pot doesn't actually fix anything. You're just giving a tangled, exhausted root system more space to be tangled and exhausted in. What actually works is something most plant guides don't touch, because it sounds completely backwards the first time you hear it. You cut the roots back, sometimes by quite a bit, and sometimes you put the plant straight back into the same pot it just came out of. I know. Stay with me. Here's the thing nobody really explains about root-bound plants. Roots don't absorb water and nutrients along their whole length. That work happens right at the tips, the fine, white, hair-like ends called root hairs. 1 centimeter of healthy root tip can carry thousands of them. That active zone right around those tips is what botanists call the rhizosphere, the living interface between root and soil where almost all nutrient uptake actually happens. But when roots have been circling a pot for years, those tips end up buried under layers of thickened, woody root that's basically just structural at that point. It's not doing much. It's just sitting there, taking up space and competing for water with the roots that are actually pulling their weight. And with a ZZ specifically, it's worth knowing what's going on underneath. That thick potato-like mass you'll find at the base isn't just a root ball, it's a rhizome, a modified stem that the plant uses to store water and energy. The Zamioculca's zamiifolia's rhizomatous structure is actually part of why it tolerates neglect so well. But it also means that when the roots circling that rhizome become impacted, the whole system stalls in a very particular way. So when you move that whole mass into a bigger pot, you're not giving the plant more capacity. You're asking a worn-out system to push further into new soil it hasn't got the energy to explore. The result is exactly what I kept seeing with my ZZ. Technically alive, technically repotted, but not really growing, not really thriving, just persisting. This is where Patricia's thinking clicked for me. When you trim the roots back, a few things happen at once. That dense circling section at the bottom, the part that's mostly woody structural root with almost no active tips left, gets removed. You're not cutting off the plant's ability to absorb water. You're cutting off the part that was blocking it. The plant responds by regenerating. And here's the bit that still surprises me every time. The replacement roots that come in are better than what you removed. More root hairs, more surface area, more efficient uptake from the very first week they exist. This happens because of how plants signal repair. When a root is cut, it triggers an auxin response, auxin being the growth hormone that directs where and how fast new root tissue forms. The cut essentially tells the plant, rebuild here, rebuild fast. It's the same hormonal mechanism that makes stem cuttings root when you propagate by division, just happening underground instead. Peer-reviewed research from the International Society of Arboriculture studied primarily in trees, but the principle holds across woody and semi-woody root systems, has consistently shown that root pruning triggers vigorous new root growth within days of the cut. The plant reads it as a signal to rebuild, and it rebuilds well. Pair that with fresh soil. I use a well-draining aroid mix with added perlite, which gives you the drainage and aeration the root zone actually needs, and none of the salt buildup from years of fertilizer, and you've given the plant something a bigger pot genuinely never could. A reason to start over. Here's exactly how I do it. Root pruning technique, step by step, and I'll walk you through a couple of plants I've tried it on so you know what to expect. Get the plant out of the pot. If it's being stubborn, squeeze the sides, tip it, tap the base. Don't pull from the stem. If roots have pushed out through the drainage holes, cut them flush. No need to be precious about it. The plant genuinely won't notice. Now look at the bottom. If you've got a loose mass you can tease apart in under 5 minutes, do that. Gently unwind anything circling tightly, but if it's a solid disc or the roots are truly impacted, don't spend 45 minutes picking at it. Get a sharp, clean knife and cut the bottom third off, straight across. First time I did it, I held my breath. These days, I don't hesitate. A third is the safe limit for most houseplants. Go much beyond that, and you tip the balance. Too many leaves demanding water from too few roots. Think of it as a reset, not a reduction. Unlike root rot, where you're removing dead or diseased tissue, here you're removing healthy but inactive roots. The distinction matters because the plant has the energy reserves to regenerate quickly. If the sides are circling heavily too, shave a little off there as well, just enough to break the pattern. You want roots that are going to grow outward into fresh soil, not carry on looping the same old circles. Then the decision. If you want the plant to get bigger, go up 1 pot size. If you're happy with how it is and just want to keep it healthy, put it back in the same pot with fresh aroid mix or a perlite amended potting soil packed in the bottom and around the sides. A terracotta pot is worth considering here if you've had moisture problems before. The breathable walls help regulate the root zone and prevent the kind of waterlogged conditions that lead to root rot. When to repot is a question I get asked constantly, and the honest answer is timing matters less than most guides suggest. Ideally, you'd do this in spring when the plant is actively growing. But if it's visibly struggling right now, waiting 5 months for the right season isn't helping anyone. Most houseplants in a well-lit home are growing year-round anyway. If the problem's there, fix it. Water it thoroughly until it drains from the bottom, then leave it alone. For the first week or two, expect very little. Maybe some minor sulking. Maybe a leaf that was already on its way out decides now's the moment to go yellow and call it. That's fine. The plant's energy is underground, building the root system you just made room for. By week 3 or 4, you should start seeing new growth from the top, and it tends to be noticeably more vigorous than what the plant was putting out before. I'd been moving my ZZ into larger and larger pots for 3 years. I root pruned it, put it back in the same pot with fresh soil, and within 6 weeks it had pushed out more new stems than it had managed in the previous 18 months combined. I'm not being dramatic. I counted. ZZ plant care aside, most common houseplants handle this well. Monsteras, pothos, snake plants, rubber plants, peace lilies, jades, crotons. Anything that grows with reasonable momentum and doesn't make a fuss about root disturbance. A few are more sensitive. Calatheas and most ferns don't love having their roots messed with aggressively. If you're root pruning one of those, take off closer to a quarter rather than a third, and be gentle about it. Here's the thing I keep coming back to. We spend a lot of time trying to give plants more pot, more soil, more space. But sometimes what a plant needs isn't more of anything. It needs the old stuff cleared away so the new stuff can actually grow. That ZZ plant is still in the same size pot it was in 3 years ago. It has never looked better. Patricia was right, and I think about that every time I reach for a bigger pot out of habit rather than necessity. Sometimes a fresh start is more useful than more room. And if you want to see exactly what happens when you get the pot and soil combination wrong from the very beginning, I have a video on the ZZ plant that covers that. It turns out most people make a fatal choice in the first 5 minutes of bringing a plant home, long before root pruning ever becomes necessary. She's still on the shelf, by the way, the ZZ, doing just fine.